This is the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet world, West Alabama. How we doing today on this Hump Day? Happy Hump Day. Hope you're doing well. It's Georgia week, and we're moving right along. Thank you so much. This is for watching us right here on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. You're watching us on the Bama Central YouTube channel, or you're checking us out on my own social media machines at Joe Gaither 6. Or perhaps you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, The Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. We're hopefully going to have a lot of fun today on the show today. Going to do something a little bit different, but we're obviously gearing up for Alabama and Georgia. We spent a little bit of time over at the practice facility today talking to some assistant coaches. You can view that right there on the Bama Central YouTube channel. I talked to Freddie Roach. We had Robert Gillespie on one side, and Katie Wyndham talked to Christian Robinson, Hunter DeCyber with Robert Gillespie. So you can see those assistant coaches' interviews on the Bama Central YouTube channel as we get closer and closer to the start of SEC play. But what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about this UNLV quarterback for just a few minutes, and we're going to talk about it with a very special guest. My dad is joining the show today, and my dad, if you didn't know, is an early 80s graduate from the University of Georgia. Spent the glory years there with Georgia and raised me right there on Georgia football. So you can follow my dad on social media nowhere, really, as he plays the ghost on social media. He follows what my mom follows and sees what she sees. So very, very blessed to have my dad join me. And we're going to try to have a little bit of fun talking some Alabama and Georgia today. So, Dad, Jeff, how are you? I feel very weird saying that.
That's all good. It's all good.
Dad,
It stopped raining here temporarily. We've had a wet day here.
And we have had a wet morning here, and we're expecting to have another wet morning tomorrow. I'm hopeful that it's not that wet, because I'm going to be spending some time. I'm scheduled to spend some time with Derek Daniel playing some golf tomorrow morning before basketball availability. But we'll see if the weather holds off. The weather here in town for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, though, for Saturday in particular, looks like it's going to be gorgeous for the big game. So I'm very excited for that. I'm excited to talk about football. We're going to talk about Matthew Sluka from UNLV. I hope I'm saying that name right, because it's the big story. But we're going to talk about Alabama and Georgia. You were here in Tuscaloosa in 2007 for the big matchup. Nick Saban's first time against Georgia, against Mark Richt. And then I also want to get your thoughts on just Georgia as a whole this season, beating Clemson, beating Kentucky, beating Tennessee Tech. Who's the pressure on in this game? You are a multi-time champion, state champion coach in Tennessee, so you're very familiar with the coaching game and mindsets and psyche, and I want to know what you think about the pressure and who these coaches, what Kalen DeBoer and what Kirby Smart might be thinking leading into this game, and if the game has any meaning with the new college football playoff. You've got 12 teams making it. Either one of these teams obviously going to walk away with a loss. It'll be easy to recover. We'll see if it actually means anything or if we're making too much of it. But before we start with Matthew Sluka, I need to start by telling us about Purple Turtle Roofing. They're the number one most reliable residential roofing replacement company. So many R's. Most reliable residential roofing replacement company in Alabama and Mississippi. Purple Turtle Roofing. Whether it's addressing leaks, storm damage, or general wear and tear, Purple Turtle Roofing is going to be there to deliver exceptional roof repair for your property. They're the leading expert in local residential roofing solutions, specializing in providing unparalleled service and quality craftsmanship for all your roof replacement needs. Call Dustin Foley and his team today at 877-PT-ROOF-5 for your free roof inspection. That's 877-787-6635 to schedule your appointment, and one of their qualified employees will come check out your roof for free and make sure you're prepared for any and all of life's storms. Like I said, it's been raining in Tuscaloosa today in West Alabama, right here in the southeast. You need to make sure your roof is up to snuff. You don't want to have any roof leaks. Check them out online at roofturtle.com. You don't have to worry about that anymore, Dad, with your situation. All your roofing is taken care of. Baylor School, and we thank Baylor School for Amari Jefferson. He's been fun to get to know right here in Tuscaloosa. Let's get right into it on the season. Matthew Sluka today is taking over a lot of the headlines. And look, if you didn't know who he was before you woke up today, that's okay. I didn't either. He is the starting quarterback, or was the starting quarterback for the UNLV Running Rebels. 3-0 on the season. And last night, as we're going to bed, goes on to the social media machines and says, I'm out, opting out of the season. I have my red shirt available. I've played 3 good games here decently for UNLV, and some schools tampered with me. I'm going to the transfer portal. Opting out, saying that UNLV has not lived up to its $100,000 offer, and he's going into the transfer portal, leaving the team. What do you make of that just on the surface?
Well, I'm going to sound like a get off my yard kind of old man. I think that it's another indication of how college football, college athletics in general have changed in the last 4 or 5 years or so. College athletics has become a minor leagues in football's case, for the NFL. And this whole idea of free agency, which we finally have gotten used to in the professional athletics, is now seeped into college athletics. And I guess on the one hand, there's a good element to that because we're no longer pretending, no longer masquerading as the amateur sport that we grew up with. Now it's a professional sport, just like the NFL or Major League Baseball or the NBA or any of the others. And so with that kind of climate and with the transfer rules that are in place right now, if a college athlete is not satisfied with where he's at, and he has the avenue to make a change. And so it's compromised old fogies like me. It's compromised sense of loyalty to the school. And so I'm really disappointed that that's the climate that we're living in right now with college athletics. It makes me feel a little jaded on Saturdays nowadays when the TV's on all day with games, and you're not sure if the players that you're watching today are going to be with the same team next year, and in this case, tomorrow. So just I feel like it's a sad commentary on where things are right now.
Well, you've got this guy Sluka, and who knows what he's going to end up doing. But you've got multiple angles with him saying, "Oh, my agent said that we've got $100,000 offer," and UNLV is saying that we've lived up to our end of the deal. And obviously, UNLV, they're not a part of the NIL sphere. They've given you your scholarship. They've given you your room and board, your Alston money, everything that you need as a scholarship athlete. Your gripe and your beef is with a third party, is some third party. It makes it so tough. I think this will be sorted out in the future with some of this legislation that's coming down the pipe. But just as an illustration of how quickly things can go wrong. He said, she said, my agent heard this, $100,000. So it was said by somebody, and I believed it, and we didn't follow through and check, and nothing's on paper. And it's just such a seedy world that we're kind of operating in at the moment.
It really is. You mentioned that we live at a boarding school here in Chattanooga, and the dormitory that we live in actually has 10 guys that are on our high school football team. 3 of them have committed to Division I schools. We've got a boy in the dorm that's committed to Ole Miss, and one that's committed to Buffalo, and one that has committed. I'm drawing a blank on the third at the moment. Buffalo, Ole Miss, and I'll think of it in a second. But we have a junior who is a highly ranked offensive tackle, and we've had conversations about the NIL world with these guys, and it is mind-blowing, some of the things that they are being told just coming out of high school. So it it really has become for these top-ranked high school kids and these highly ranked potential transfers. It's become a bidding war for schools, and we're the rich are going to continue to get richer. I think that the precedent that Tennessee has come out with in the last week of adding a talent tax to their season ticket holders, I think that's the start of a trend. I think that other schools will, by necessity, have to follow that. So you're passing on the cost to the consumer, to the fan, to the graduate, whatever. And in our case, your mom and my case, that prices us out of the opportunity to go see a game live. The last Georgia game we saw was an SEC championship game against LSU that Joe Burrow cleaned our clocks in, and we paid a premium for those 2 tickets. So it's a different world, and it relegates people, the average worker, average person like me, like us, to watching the games on TV and not getting back to campus, not being caught up in all the excitement of game day, which is so much fun. But it's very limiting. And these schools like Georgia, like Alabama, like Tennessee, like Texas, and the list just goes, there's a dozen or more of these schools that have seemingly unlimited resources. And yet, despite these seemingly unlimited resources, they have begun, in Tennessee's case, taxing their season ticket holders. So it's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, making the fans pay for the athletes instead of it come. I mean, it's such a backwards position or backwards situation, which is why with all the people that are up in arms today, oh my gosh, this quarterback, you're so selfish, which it is. It's a selfish decision. They say, oh my gosh, this is such a terrible. It is terrible, but it's just a product of. It's just a product of the culture that you've cultivated over the course of my entire lifetime, where you're just taking out a loan or other people are paying for it, and you're taking the free labor. I mean, these guys, whether you like it or not, it has been free labor from the athletes for X amount of years. So it's hard to feel bad for UNLV in this certain case, and it's hard to feel bad for Sluka in this case, jumping into a situation I guess he wasn't quite familiar with or didn't have all the information on. It's just another college football tragedy.
Well, I don't blame the athletes at all for cashing in as best they can, because I mean, we know statistically, I don't know the exact percentage, but what is it, 1%, 2% of these college football players are going to make a living playing professional football. So if they've got an opportunity to cash in at this level, they need to take advantage of that. And if UNLV is not able or willing to pay market value for this quarterback, and someone else is willing, then he needs to take advantage of his earning power while he has it. That's just real life.
I don't see Matthew Sluka making it to the NFL, but $500,000 from an SEC school can certainly start him off nicely for his life.
Exactly.
So you mentioned not making it to games very, very often anymore, but you're still watching each and every week. What I want to get into is one game that you did make it to. The last time that that Georgia was here in Alabama, well, the second to last time, the last real time that Georgia was here. Georgia was here in Bryant-Denny Stadium in 2020, and you had probably 25,000 fans sparsed across Bryant-Denny Stadium, and everybody's wearing masks, and it's not kind of really a real atmosphere. But in 2007, when I was a senior in high school, you and my mother came down to watch Mark Richt played Nick Saban in his first year, and Matthew Stafford made a heroic play. So I'll just open it up for you to tell us about 2007, Georgia beating Alabama 26-23 in overtime.
Well, it is one of our best memories as a fan. Not the best, but one of our best memories as a fan. We went to Tuscaloosa with friends. A high school classmate of mine had a daughter that was on my track team at the time. And so we had reconnected through that avenue. They were season ticket holders at Alabama. His father had been a letterman at Alabama. He is as big of an Alabama fan as any of your listeners or viewers are. And they invited us to go to Tuscaloosa with them. And we had a wonderful time, a wonderful day. And it was a night game. And we, of course, were on pins and needles during the game. And then Matthew Stafford did make that heroic throw down the left sideline. We were behind the Georgia bench on about the 20 or 30 yard line, good seats. And they scored in the opposite end zone from where we were sitting. And were able to win the game, which was huge. But it was somewhat awkward because we weren't able to celebrate the way we might normally celebrate because we were with our friends who he had driven. So we had to get back in the car, drive back to Chattanooga. And it was, I don't know, it was exciting for us, but at the same time, a little bit of an awkward situation. I'm not sure how that ride home would have been different if the roles had been reversed, but we were certainly excited to come out on top that particular game. And that was actually our first visit, my first visit. I'm 99% sure Kay's first visit to Tuscaloosa, to the campus. It was all brand new to us. We got the full tour. We got there early enough to walk around, check out all the tailgating, visited his fraternity house, which was a little awkward at that stage of our life. But the whole setup was just very exciting. The stadium was absolutely packed out and going crazy the entire game. And we came to appreciate in a different way Sweet Home Alabama as a song because we heard it so often during that game. And I don't know what the cheer is I don't know exactly what is said when a first down is made, but there's some cheer that the Alabama fans all together say something when a first down is made. I couldn't even make it out. But anyway, it was a great experience for us, but at the same time, a little bit awkward with our hosts.
Understandable. So you don't want to celebrate in someone's face as they're feeling so sour.
Yeah.
Understandably so.
I will say that they were both very gracious.
Good.
Yes, we'll say that.
And hopefully everybody will be on Saturday, win or lose, no matter what side they end up on, because it is just a game. It's been a lot of fun to play Georgia over the years, many times for championships, but still just a game. I want to go ahead and flash forward to this year, because I kind of don't love remember when radio, to be perfectly honest. This year, Georgia has beaten Clemson, Tennessee Tech, and Kentucky coming into the year. You've got a quarterback who's regarded as the 1, 2, 3 best quarterback in the country. You've got, it seems like another mean defense, but the only real big old name is really Malachi Starks and Michael Williams up on the edge are kind of your leading big names on the defensive side of the football. It just seems like the same old Georgia, but a little different without the star power as much. What's been your experience watching Georgia over these 3 weeks, and what's been your experience with these 3 results?
Well, outside of Beck and a couple of other star returners, we're still in the get to know you stage as a fan. We're big Georgia fans, but we're big Georgia fans in season. We don't
Sure.
we don't live in the weeds, outside of the season, so to speak. So, we read reports, we hear reports about how great the recruiting class was and has been recently under Coach Smart, and so we expect to have good players on the field because of their ratings. But a lot of these guys that are playing are as new to us as they are to, a non-Georgia fan. So I was a little bit nervous before the Clemson game as a fan, and very excited with the way that played out. I questioned, how good is after that game. I questioned how good is Georgia, or is it a matter of Clemson not being up to what their standard has been in the last few years. The Tennessee Tech game is what it is. It was a nice scrimmage. And then the Kentucky game, I've had folks around here ask me about it. And historically, Georgia has always struggled in Lexington during night games. And so I wasn't that surprised with the way Kentucky played Georgia tough. I was disappointed that our offensive line was not able to open up more holes for the running backs. I really like this new running back, the freshman named Frazier, I believe his name is. But apparently Etienne, the transfer, is above him in the depth chart. And but I really like that freshman running back. I am very, very pleased as a fan that Georgia's not yet given up a touchdown. As well as Kentucky played, I think it's very encouraging for Georgia's defense to be able to keep them out of the end zone. I expect that to change Saturday, but the level of competition is different. Is going to be different Saturday. I think Georgia was fortunate to get out of Lexington with a win, but with the way the playoffs are set up, at least right now, it's a survive and advance kind of mentality at this stage of the season. When we get to end of October, 1st of November, I don't think that the Kentucky game is going to be a factor in how the selection committee or whoever's in charge of putting the tournament together is going to view Georgia. I think it will be just one more win on the schedule. It's a game like Saturday that is going to carry a lot more weight than a narrow win in Lexington, Kentucky in September.
That's really that's perfect. That's really what I want to get into next is what does this game really mean because of the 12-team playoff, because the new SEC is divisionless and you're taking the top two teams. And if you lose here, if Alabama loses here, you're going the rest of the way. And okay, you might take another loss to Tennessee or at Oklahoma, might become a problem for you. But ultimately, you're probably making it into the 12-team field. If you continue to win the games you're supposed to win. And Georgia, the same. Georgia, you still have to go to Texas and Ole Miss. It's probably more important for Georgia, but what does this game really mean for these two programs in terms of the in-game goals of winning a national championship?
Well, I'll speak to Georgia. I think Georgia has three key tests: coming to Tuscaloosa Saturday, going to Austin, and going to Oxford. And I think being the visiting team, it gives Ole Miss, it gives Texas, it gives Alabama a certain advantage. And I think all three of those games are both winnable and losable for Georgia. And so I don't think one of those three is more important than the others, but I do think to set up good seeding or to set up being in the tournament, to set up what is your end of the season goal, I think Georgia has to win 2 out of these 3 games. I think if Georgia loses Saturday, they must beat Texas in Austin. They must beat Ole Miss in Oxford. If they are able to win Saturday, then I think that gives Georgia a little wiggle room. I think if Georgia were to lose all three, I think we'd be out of luck. And I think it would be a similar situation to what we had last year when Alabama beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. I went into that game as a fan thinking, well, this is a playoff game. And I did not think that the loser would advance. And that's the way it played out. And frankly, I felt like if you can't beat Alabama, what makes you think that you're going to beat one of the other three teams that are going to be in the playoffs? So I'm not convinced that Alabama was a better team that last year, but I am convinced that on that game day, Alabama was the better team on the field that day. And that's what it comes down to. And so coming up this Saturday, I'm not sure, on paper who has the better team. And I'm not sure that matters. I do think I am interested. I'm very, very curious to see how Coach DeBoer handles this kind of game atmosphere with this much on the line. He had experience at Washington, but this is a different animal. Two highly ranked SEC schools playing in Tuscaloosa. I'm not sure going into it, that he has to prove to me that he will have his team ready to play. We've seen Coach Smart get his team ready to play multiple times. There have been occasions where Georgia's been flat in a big game, but for the most part, Coach Smart does a good job of having his guys ready to go in a big situation, and I would expect that Saturday. I think that what happened in Lexington will eventually play to Georgia's advantage Saturday. I think that will be something that Smart and the rest of his staff will use to their advantage in getting the mindset ready. If there's one thing that I think Smart learned from working with Saban as long as he did, it is how to play those mind games with his kids and have them ready to tee off when the game starts. So to go back to your question, I think Georgia has to win one of these three. And I haven't even mentioned Tennessee. I'm still, as far as I'm concerned, the jury's still out as to whether or not Tennessee is, as good as they think they are right now.
It's not impressive going to Norman and just controlling the whole game.
An Oklahoma team that won their previous game 14-12 at home. No, I'm not. I don't think that Oklahoma has entered the SEC as ready for SEC competition as Texas did.
Oh, sure, definitely. But Tennessee didn't get off their first page on Saturday. They stayed on the page the whole night.
You're right. They didn't have to. When you're up 19-3 at halftime, you can pump the brakes a little bit, shorten the game a little bit, protect your quarterback a little bit. All of that.
Oh,
I'm still not. I don't want to believe.
Maybe I'm too mesmerized by the big brand Oklahoma. It's going down.
Well, it is a big brand, but there are a lot of big brands in the SEC.
That's true,
and that doesn't win you a football game. So.
Well, let's keep going. I got two more questions to throw at you. Before I do, though, I need to tell everybody about our friend Derek Daniel at State Farm. You can call him today at 205-758-3391 for all your insurance needs. Derek Daniel, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. You can visit him right here in Northport, 4604 Highway 69 North, Northport, Alabama, right off of McFarland Boulevard. He is right past the Tiger Rock on the left. See him online today at agentderekdaniel.com or call one of his representatives, Red, Reese, or Victoria, for all your questions. 205-758-3391. Like we said, it was raining today. You don't want to be out of place with insurance on the rainy roads in Tuscaloosa with all the drivers. Call him today at 205-758-3391. All right, so you got into it just a little bit, right, with the last answer. But for context's sake, just to reiterate, you've been coaching all your life and have been very, very successful, winning state championships in Tennessee. Not in football, but obviously it is coaching is coaching. Who's the pressure on? Is it Kirby? Is it Kirby Smart saying, "Okay, we're the new kings in the SEC now that Nick Saban is dead. Now I'm officially the king. And we won two championships in a row, but now that he is retired, there's unquestioned." Or is it Kalen DeBoer saying, "Okay, the standard is still the standard"? We've heard the line for 8 months. The standard's still the standard. Who's the pressure on? What's it really mean? You've kind of outlined the Georgia schedule. Does that add to it? What does each coach have to do to get their team ready, or what are they thinking this week? They had 2 weeks too.
Yeah, both of them had 2 weeks. And listen, the answer to your question is I don't know.
What would you do?
Well, I think that Kirby has experiences that he can draw from, experiences that he can point to, of having Georgia teams in big games, having Georgia teams that have come through in big situations. I think he ignores the situations where Georgia has not come through. There have been a handful of those, but he can kind of point to big successes on big stages as kind of a roadmap for going into Tuscaloosa Saturday. DeBoer's got experience in Washington and where else? Sioux Falls.
High school compared to this.
Yeah, it's just not the same stage. And so I'm really curious as to how his team, how his coaching staff, that's critical, how his staff responds to this kind of situation. Alabama, what I saw, I'm trying to think, not the last game, but a couple of games ago, it seems to me, I remember that Alabama started a little slowly before opening things up. They cleaned the table with Wisconsin, but there was a game before that it did not approach covering the spread until the very end. Which game was that?
South Florida, the second week of the year.
Yeah.
It was 14-13 going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah. So, that if I were wearing crimson, I would be a little concerned about that.
Yeah.
Wearing red, I'm kind of excited about that.
Sure.
And at the same time, every game is different. And so I don't think DeBoer has enough of a track record yet for you to be able to say he always has his teams ready or he never has his teams ready. It's way too early for anything like that. But Kirby does have enough of a track record to say that he most of the time has his teams ready. And I like being in that position. I prefer being in that position. I'll be very nervous as a fan Saturday. But I think Kirby and his staff, having been there and done that, gives Georgia a slight advantage in that regard. I think being in front of the home crowd, night game, where everything is highly juiced, gives Alabama an advantage. As soon as there's a Georgia turnover, then that ramps up things within the stadium and on the Alabama sideline. So limiting mistakes for Georgia will be critical, but that's the way it is for every road game. It doesn't matter if you're playing Alabama or if you're playing Vanderbilt. If you have to limit mistakes. Georgia has not yet shown me the ability to sustain drives this year like they have the last couple of years, but a sustained drive would be very encouraging. Carson Beck typically does not start out real well. He's a slow starter, and that would play into Alabama fans being very excited. So, there's some the offensive coordinator, Mike Bobo, he has kind of a mixed reputation. Some people love him, some people don't love him. But if he's got any magic that he can pull out of his hat for an opening drive, I think that would go a long way to establishing a tone for Saturday. The other thing, though, is that the game will not be won in the first quarter. So I'm not sure which coach or which staff will want to try to shorten the game. But I don't think Georgia wants to get into a track meet with Alabama. Alabama's wide receivers have appeared to be more explosive than Georgia's early in the season. I would not trade quarterbacks from a throwing standpoint, but from an ability to change the course of the game with your legs. Jalen Milroe is very, very scary. So, there's a lot of factors that come into play. But I think, to answer your question, if I'm Coach Smart and his staff, I'm bringing to the attention of my players previous successes in these kind of big stages.
Well, we've had a lot of fun on the program today. I appreciate your time. We've been hanging out with my dad, Jeff Gaither. And if you know me at all, I've grown up in Chattanooga in a Georgia household. I just want to open the door before we get predictions and close it down. I went to a lot of Georgia games. I have a great memory about 2005-06, seeing Georgia, Billy Bennett kick a field goal against Clemson. I have a great memory as earlier than that, probably early 2000, 2001, playing Vanderbilt, a lady behind me the whole game yelling, "Go Doors, go Doors," while Georgia's drumming her face in. So I just want to open it up to you. What do you think about when you think about, Joe and Georgia football?
I am terribly disappointed.
Okay.
It is one of the disappointments of my life that you are an Alabama fan. I think your mother and I share just this great sense of grief.
We do not share that.
No, your mom is saying in the background that we do not share that. We support you.
For the record, I'm not a fan of anyone. We're not fans.
Okay. Well, you are a Bama graduate, and we're proud of you for that.
Certainly.
And you have spent your entire adult life now in Tuscaloosa working, and we're proud of you for that. But the fact that we have needed to, and I will say wanted to, say Roll Tide in our home, it's a hard thing to say sometimes, but we are excited to say Roll Tide every time Alabama does well, and it's not at Georgia's expense.
One of your old students saying she's heard that before.
I see that. Well, hello to
you. Your comment, Katie. Thank you.
Hello to you, Katie.
Continue. I don't mean to throw that off. I just pop them up there.
It's all right.
So it's difficult to say Roll Tide, and then.
Well, I guess my memory is when you were growing up, how excited you were when Georgia did well, and how crushed you were when Georgia did not do well. And so we know that there's Georgia blood running deep in those veins somewhere. But we also know that we learned at student and parent orientation, the multiple uses of the phrase "roll tide," and we still to this day, from time to time, will use that expression with one another. So I don't know. We're proud of you, proud of the work that you're doing, and hope that you have continued success with what you're doing right there.
Your comment made me think of, goodness gracious, Jim Donna and Musa Smith, late 90s against Georgia Tech, fumbles on the goal line and raking leaves. The whole day just kicking these leaf piles over this young man's fumble on the goal line to Georgia Tech. So fun. But also the 2021 National Championship game. Kirby Smart's big win over Nick Saban just made me think that it was such a great experience to be in Indianapolis. And I thought, I'm so happy for mom and dad that is finally turned their way. So it's going to be a great time. Every time Georgia and Alabama face one another, it just makes me think of family a lot. So I'm excited for the weekend. Let's wrap it up before we get too off the rails with kind of your final thoughts and predictions. It's going to be 6:30 right here in Tuscaloosa, Bryant-Denny Stadium. By the end of the first quarter, the lights will be going. So it's going to be, I think the atmosphere is going to rival 2011 against LSU 9-6 with the people and former President Trump and just the celebrities. It's just going to be off the rails. What do you think is going to be your thought? What do you think we're going to see by the end of the night on Saturday?
I think it's going to be a dogfight, and I don't mean to use a pun, but I think that it's going to be scratch and claw for every yard, for every first down. There may be a couple of big plays, but by and large, I expect it to be a battle between both lines of scrimmage. I like Georgia's lines of scrimmage. I wish that, I think his name is Ratledge, the big boy.
Tate Ratledge.
I hope that he's able to play, but I don't expect him to. I expect that the game will be close, and I would not be the least bit surprised for the team that has the ball last to win the game. I trust our kicker. I know that Alabama is paying a new kicker. Going back to the beginning of our conversation with the transfer portal, a good kicker.
Hey, Dad.
I hope that it doesn't come back down to a field goal, but
rumor is don't tell anybody. Everybody turn the show off real quick. Rumor is that's a bad investment.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, maybe that'll play out Saturday in Georgia's favor. But I would expect I'm expecting that whoever has the ball last is going to win the game. I'm going to say 24-21.
I like it. I think that's about right. It's going to be a lot of fun. Well, you cannot follow my father on social media. He'll be following me. And so if you have any comments, you can leave that for him. We appreciate your time, Dad. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for all the ways.
It's good talking to you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Whew, that was a great time and a great conversation. I am so thankful for my parents' support and thankful for really the love of sport that my father gave to me at a young age. We're going to have a lot of fun as the week continues. Tomorrow, the show continues, and we'll probably give you 3 players to watch. We've done that before each and every week, and we've done pretty good. 2 out of 3 in most of the weeks. 2 of our 3 players have hit on some good plays. I know against Wisconsin, we had Q Robinson get his 3rd sack in 3 games. And I know against Wisconsin, we had Jam Miller get himself into the end zone for the 3rd time. So we were 2 out of 3. That was a good time. So we'll bring you 3 players to watch tomorrow on the program against the Georgia Bulldogs. We had a lot of fun today. Thank y'all so much for following us at Joe Gaither 6. Thank you for Purple Turtle Roofing and for State Farm, Derek Daniel at State Farm for sponsoring the program. We appreciate you guys so much for watching us. We'll catch up with you tomorrow right here on the Bama Central YouTube channel, the home of the Alabama Crimson Tide on SI.
Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. Keep up with Joe on all his social media pages at Joe Gaither 6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to read us daily at BamaCentral.com.